General Motors has an exceptionally strong offer on the table. It's historic. I will say we're ready for this.
Barra, the CEO of GM, just ruined the whole thing for GM and Chevy. See, GM has already been struggling lately, but what Barra did now is like an insult to an injury. It doesn't look like GM can make a comeback after this. Now, loyal customers are mad and dealerships feel betrayed. But why exactly, and how is this going to affect you? What the heck is happening? In a recent interview, she assured of GM's commitment to phasing out combustion engine vehicles in the United States by 2035, stating, "That is the plan we're still executing." However, not everyone is on board with this vision. Skepticism and criticism have surfaced, especially given the significant operational challenges that the company has been grappling with. This ambitious plan mirrors similar commitments made by global competitors who are eager to jump on the electric vehicle bandwagon. But as the deadline is approaching, it becomes glaringly clear that there is much more to electric vehicle production than everyone initially thought. The gap between General Motors' grand ambitions and the actual realities of production has become increasingly evident. But why is this happening, and what's the solution? Well, before we get into that, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. GM versus reality. Even though Barra envisioned a speedy transition to electric vehicles, the company has stumbled over serious supply chain issues, unexpected technology delays, and mounting competition from both established automakers and fresh entrants making waves in the market. The Ultium battery platform, which was highlighted as a cornerstone of GM's electric vehicle strategy, has experienced troubling delays in both production and deployment. These setbacks have sparked a lot of questions about whether General Motors is truly prepared to meet its own ambitious timelines and fulfill its promises to consumers who are waiting for these electric alternatives. Critics point out that this misalignment highlights a fundamental disconnect between Barra's vision for General Motors and the actual operational capabilities of the company. While competitors like Ford and Tesla have been making impressive strides toward electric vehicle production and establishing themselves in the market, GM's sluggish response has raised alarms about its long-term viability in what is rapidly becoming an electrified automotive landscape. But that is just the tip of the iceberg. You see, on top of all the problems that come with transitioning to fully electric, GM is facing big issues. And to understand what I mean, you don't need to dig that deep. Just look at the ignition switch scandal that rocked General Motors, often referred to as GM. This was no ordinary mishap. It involved a significant defect that could turn the engine off unexpectedly while you were driving. Imagine cruising down the highway, only to have your steering and brakes stop responding just when you need them most. That sounds terrifying, right? This dangerous flaw meant that airbags wouldn't deploy during crashes, putting so many lives at risk. In fact, this scandal is linked to a heartbreaking total of at least 97 deaths and numerous injuries, with models like the Chevrolet Cobalt and Saturn Ion being especially impacted. The ignition switch could unexpectedly slip out of the run position because of jolts or if something heavy was dangling from the keychain, leaving drivers completely unprepared in emergency scenarios. Initially, GM's response to these alarming issues was tainted by a dreadful culture of silence and neglect. Internal communications revealed a shocking truth. GM had been aware of problems with the ignition switch since at least 2001. Yet, instead of taking swift action, they hesitated, weighing the costs against the need for urgent fixes. Investigations uncovered that even after serious incidents were reported, including a tragic case in 2007 where a driver lost their life because the airbags failed due to this defect, GM didn't launch a formal inquiry until years went by. The public first caught wind of this scandal in early 2014 when GM announced a massive recall of 2.6 million vehicles. This decision came only after relentless media scrutiny and probing by Congress, which forced the company to confront its long-held awareness of the defect and its shocking neglect of consumer safety. The financial consequences were nothing short of devastating, racking up over $900 million in fines and settlements directly related to the ignition switch issue. Among these penalties was a hefty $35 million fine from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration for delays in recalling the cars that were affected. But the financial hit was just the tip of the iceberg. The scandal left a long-lasting scar on GM's reputation. Consumer trust took a nosedive, and surveys indicated a severe drop in brand loyalty. Chevrolet in particular suffered as customers voiced concerns about the safety and reliability of their vehicles after the scandal broke. Many potential buyers grew hesitant to purchase GM cars, fueled by fears connected to the ignition switch problems. This wariness only amplified the challenges facing the company in the marketplace. business. And then is when Mary Barra, fresh in her role as CEO of GM, stepped onto the stage not long after the ignition switch scandal came to light. Her initial moves included offering public apologies and promising a new era of transparency within the company. Barra talked about transforming GM from a cost culture into a customer culture, making it clear that safety and quality would take precedence in future operations. However, her approach has not escaped criticism. Doubters argue that while her statements were indeed commendable, they didn't necessarily translate into the fundamental changes needed within GM's corporate culture or everyday practices. Many onlookers are left wondering if her actions provided genuine restoration of public confidence, or if they were merely surface-level gestures meant to ease the backlash, failing to confront the deeper systemic issues lurking within GM's governance structure. So, exactly how did we get here? Have you noticed how General Motors, famous for their trucks, has been making headlines because of their pricing strategy that seems laser focused on high-end models like the Chevrolet High Country and Z71? These particular models have faced some hefty price hikes, which is not just coincidental. It mirrors a bigger trend sweeping through the automotive industry where manufacturers are increasingly placing their vehicles at those premium price points. To give you an idea of just how much prices have surged, think about this. The average transaction price for full-size trucks has skyrocketed, and some models are now pushing past the astonishing $70,000 mark. This rising tide of pricing can be traced back to a variety of factors such as the soaring production costs driven by escalating prices for raw materials, persistent labor shortages, and inflationary pressures that seem to be never ending. By choosing to raise the prices of these luxury trucks, General Motors is clearly aligning their strategy with an overall goal of maintaining those all-important profit margins, especially during these tough economic times. They are doing this by loading their trucks with premium features and cutting-edge technology. Think about perks like enhanced towing capabilities, opulent interiors, and advanced safety systems, all aimed at convincing you that these higher price tags are worth it. Yet it's important to note that this approach may not click with every segment of the market, particularly as economic conditions shift and the purchasing power of consumers faces challenges. Additionally, this decision to zero in on high-end models represents a crucial strategic shift towards maximizing profits rather than appealing to a wider array of buyers. While this can certainly result in financial gains in the short term, there's a significant risk involved. That risk includes potentially alienating those budget-conscious consumers who are out there actively seeking value-driven options in what is undoubtedly a competitive marketplace. To illustrate, when competitors like Ford and Ram also push their premium offerings, GM's strategy might unintentionally ignite price wars that could chip away at profit margins throughout the industry. What now? Well, let's dive into the repercussions of GM's pricing strategy, which are manifesting as unsold inventory piling up at Chevrolet dealerships. It's been reported that numerous dealerships are wrestling with a surplus of these high-priced truck models that simply aren't moving as fast as they had hoped. Taking a closer look at the situation, the inventory levels for some Chevrolet truck models have hit shocking highs. In fact, some dealerships are staring down the barrel of up to 90 days worth of stock, when the industry standard is generally somewhere between 30 to 60 days. This surplus not only blocks vital capital, but also highlights a glaring disconnect between GM's pricing strategy and the actual demand from consumers. Understanding the reasons behind the decline in demand for these pricey trucks involves recognizing a variety of economic factors. There's a clear shift taking place in consumer preferences, with more people leaning towards vehicles that are fuel efficient and sustainable, as we all become a bit more aware of environmental issues. Nowadays, many consumers are prioritizing cars that offer superior fuel economy or even hybrid options over the traditional gas guzzlers. On top of that, the broader economic landscape with downturns and rising interest rates has limited disposable income for numerous potential buyers. This financial tightening makes many consumers increasingly reluctant to plunge into high-ticket purchases like luxury trucks. As buyers grow more discerning and selective in their choices, they are actively seeking vehicles that deliver good value while still encompassing essential features. This transformation in the market landscape presents a daunting challenge for GM as they navigate the waters of a shifting consumer focus that is moving decidedly towards more economical choices. But GM has a plan. In an effort to tackle the declining sales figures and the growing unsold inventory problem, GM has opted to significantly boost its advertising expenditures. However, this decision warrants a deeper examination of its effectiveness, especially in the context of today's challenging market environment. Even though GM is ramping up marketing efforts aimed at showcasing the impressive features and benefits of high-end trucks, evidence suggests that this surge in advertising has done little to meaningfully impact sales. Critics are quick to point out that merely increasing advertising budgets does not actually remedy the core issues impacting demand for GM trucks. Instead of genuinely engaging potential buyers or addressing their ever-evolving preferences, this strategy starts to feel like a superficial fix, masking fundamental problems within the product lineup and pricing structure. For example, while flashy advertising campaigns might shine a light on advanced technology or luxurious features, they do virtually nothing to assuage concerns regarding affordability or fuel efficiency. What's more, there's a very real danger that excessive advertising could lead customers to feel weary or skeptical about GM's messaging. If potential buyers start to sense that they are being bombarded with promotions without observing any corresponding value in the products on offer, they may ultimately grow disillusioned with the brand altogether. But we are just scratching the surface here, so let's dive deeper. Betrayal or destiny? Look, GM's EV plan is a bold strategy to say the least, because here's the catch. This swift shift could potentially leave longtime customers feeling abandoned, especially those who have always relied on and loved traditional gasoline-powered vehicles. Take a moment to think about it. Many loyal GM fans, especially those used to the performance and reliability of their trusty combustion engines, might feel sidelined by this rapid transition. The sudden focus on electric vehicles raises serious questions about whether GM will continue to offer the kinds of options that these customers value, such as performance, reliability, and a trusty driving range. As GM speeds up its electric vehicle strategy, it risks losing touch with a key portion of its customer base who aren't quite ready to embrace electric cars. This group of consumers often raises important concerns like range anxiety, worrying about whether they'll make it to their destination on a single charge, as well as the lack of proper charging infrastructure and the higher upfront costs associated with switching to electric vehicles compared to their traditional internal combustion counterparts. Many loyal customers might start to perceive GM as abandoning its roots for a trend that hasn't yet proven itself. This perception could foster feelings of resentment among existing fans and potentially drive brand loyalty and sales into the ground. And in light of the increasing backlash about its aggressive electric vehicle strategy, GM is now making a comeback with plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, or PHEVs. This move is seen by many as a last-ditch effort to reconnect with customers who felt overlooked as GM rushed towards full electrification. Looking back, GM found success with the Chevrolet Volt, a vehicle that cleverly combined an electric battery with a gasoline engine, providing consumers with a nice middle ground between fully electric options and good old-fashioned gasoline cars. However, the return of the PHEVs is being viewed by some as a response that falls short and comes too late. Critics are claiming that this change reflects a reactive approach instead of a proactive one, responding to customer needs only after the damage has been done. By circling back to PHEVs, after initially sidelining them in favor of a full electric focus, GM risks giving off the impression that it's merely scrambling to meet market demands instead of confidently leading the charge. This could alienate customers who are on the lookout for genuine innovation and commitment to their needs rather than half-hearted attempts to placate their concerns. A series of bad strategies. GM's determined push into the electric vehicle market is not just about cars, it may also be costing them significant financial resources. Despite setting ambitious production and sales goals, the company has disappointed in its electric vehicle segment. For the year 2024, GM has had to lower its production targets from an expected 400,000 vehicles down to a range between 200,000 and 300,000 units. This scaling back is due to slower than anticipated demand and ongoing production challenges. This adjustment is a glaring indicator of the hurdles GM faces when trying to achieve profitability in the electric vehicle sector, while also making hefty investments in infrastructure and technology development. Critics argue that GM's intense focus on profitability within its electric vehicle segment might actually hurt their ability to innovate and maintain market share. While GM aims for mid-single-digit profit margins on electric vehicles by the year 2025, this narrow focus could lead to missed opportunities for developing cutting-edge technologies or expanding its product offerings. Meanwhile, competitors like Tesla and Ford are racing ahead, innovating rapidly and grabbing their share of the market through diverse offerings and solid investments in research and development. If GM keeps chasing short-term profits over long-term growth and innovation, they risk falling even further behind in an already competitive industry. When we look at pricing strategies for key models such as the Chevy Equinox EV and the GMC Hummer EV, serious questions about affordability come to the forefront for everyday consumers. The starting price for the Chevy Equinox EV is around $34,995. Although this price tag positions it as one of the more wallet-friendly long-range electric vehicles available, it is still considerably higher than many standard gasoline-powered cars. Now, the GMC Hummer EV is a whole different story. It hits the market at a whopping price of about $110,000, making it more appealing mainly to wealthy buyers. High prices pose a challenge for GM's electric offerings, as they may deter broader consumer demographics who are hesitant to make an expensive investment, especially amid economic uncertainty and increasing interest rates. Plus, many potential buyers still feel unsure about transitioning from trusted gasoline vehicles to newer technologies that have yet to prove their reliability and cost-effectiveness over time. By following this pricing strategy, GM could be undercutting its own goals for expanding its market presence. They risk alienating potential buyers, especially those who might be considering a shift away from their traditional vehicles if electric options seem too pricey or don't feel valuable when compared to the internal combustion engine models. As GM aims to capture more market share within the electric vehicle sector, tackling the issue of affordability will be essential. It's all about enticing a diverse range of customers while still keeping the loyalty of their existing fan base intact. But can they manage this? Well, let's talk about that for a sec. What the future for GM? To understand how GM solves their problems is too easy. We just need to look back in time. After the ignition switch scandal, Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors, made headlines by deciding to fire 15 employees who were linked to this crisis. This dramatic action was presented as a crucial step toward accountability and transparency, highlighting GM's commitment to fixing its past mistakes and preventing them from happening again. But was this really a transformative decision, or was it merely a reaction that skirted the deeper issues plaguing the company? Critics have jumped at the chance to point out that these firings might serve more as a scapegoat strategy than a genuine attempt to address the root causes of the scandal. Sure, it's important to hold people accountable for their actions, but simply axing a handful of employees doesn't get to the heart of the deeper cultural issues within GM that allowed such negligence to occur in the first place. This begs the question, were those terminations truly aimed at fostering a culture of accountability, or were they simply an attempt to calm public outrage and clean up GM's tarnished reputation? The implications of this decision extend far beyond just a few terminated employees. It highlights a lack of comprehensive reform within GM's corporate culture. By focusing on blaming individuals instead of tackling systemic failures, Mary Barra's leadership risks embedding an environment where accountability feels shallow and doesn't lead to any kind of meaningful change. This approach brings to light serious concerns about whether GM has really learned from its past mistakes, or if it continues to function in a culture that values appearances over true accountability. If you think the problem stopped with the firings, think again. Chevrolet vehicles have continued to suffer from ongoing quality control issues, further underscoring the incompetence present within GM. Just take the 2022 Chevrolet Silverado, for example. This truck has been reported to have serious engine problems, particularly with its V8 engines, which are known to experience lifter failures. These complications arise from manufacturing defects and design flaws, leading to premature wear and tear that ultimately compromises the reliability of the vehicles. Owners have taken to voicing their frustrations publicly, with complaints ranging from persistent tapping noises to performance inconsistencies, all of which attack consumer confidence in the brand. Other models haven't fared better either. The Silverado ZR2 has faced its unique set of challenges, including failures of the engine control module and troublesome software glitches found in the newer Blazer EV models. These issues don't only dampen customer satisfaction, but also contribute to the growing belief that GM is struggling to maintain quality standards across its entire lineup. The lingering quality control problems can be traced back to an overarching culture of incompetence, which is deeply rooted in leadership failures and insufficient accountability measures. When quality issues pop up, they often reflect fundamental organizational flaws, like a lack of oversight in production processes or a failure to adequately prioritize customer feedback during design and engineering decisions. This culture blocks GM's ability to compete effectively in a market that is increasingly driven by consumer expectations for reliability and impressive performance. Leadership failures and lessons. You know how overly complex hierarchy can completely choke creativity and slow down decision-making processes. It makes it really tough for teams to act quickly when new challenges or consumer demands arise. GM is in the middle of that right now. This bureaucratic maze hampers meaningful communication among departments, causing delays in identifying and solving problems. Have you ever noticed that when quality control issues come up, the convoluted chain of command can lead to critical information being lost or miscommunicated? This just compounds existing issues instead of facilitating swift, effective resolutions. As teams get stuck in piles of red tape, opportunities for innovation simply vanish, leaving GM vulnerable to competitors who can move more quickly and responsively. In addition, Barra's approach to leadership is often marked by a hesitance to embrace radical changes or question long-standing practices within GM. This conservatism might arise from a desire to maintain stability after turbulent times, but it ultimately stifles the company's potential for growth and adaptability in an ever-evolving automotive world. The failure to foster a culture that encourages risk-taking and accountability doesn't just allow old problems to persist, it also threatens GM's long-term survival in an increasingly competitive market. Let's take a step back and look at another significant aspect of Barra's legacy: the company's decision to pour billions into stock buybacks instead of funneling resources into research and development for electric vehicle technology or enhancing existing vehicle lines. The Barra legacy. In late 2023, GM announced an eye-popping $10 billion accelerated stock buyback program, which they presented as a way to return excess capital to shareholders following some labor negotiations with the United Auto Workers. This move raised eyebrows, especially since it occurred despite Barra's own acknowledgement about the numerous challenges GM faces during its transition to electric vehicles. So why does prioritizing stock buybacks matter? It brings to light critical questions about General Motors' commitment to its electric vehicle strategy. By redirecting a whopping $14 billion towards stock buybacks since the year 2015, money that could have been spent on essential investments in technology and product development, General Motors seems to be favoring short-term satisfaction for shareholders over long-term corporate health and innovation potential. Many critics argue this approach illustrates a narrow focus on boosting stock prices while neglecting the importance of building a sustainable future for the organization. Moreover, although Barra has openly emphasized the need to transition to an electric future, the continued allocation of funds to stock repurchases paints a different picture. It suggests a lack of urgency or genuine commitment to this goal. As competitors ramp up their own electric vehicle initiatives, General Motors could easily fall further behind if they don't start prioritizing investment in their electric vehicle capabilities. Looking ahead, the future of General Motors under Mary Barra's leadership seems quite uncertain, as sales numbers take a hit and quality control issues continue to plague the company, demonstrated by an alarming number of recalls and persistent consumer complaints. GM seems to be at a real crossroads. The obstacles tied to transitioning to electric vehicles only get tougher when combined with a declining market position and waning consumer trust. During Barra's tenure, we've witnessed a wave of competitors jumping into the electric vehicle market. Many of these new players are gaining traction with innovative products that consumers are eager to embrace. Companies like Rivian and even traditional rivals like Ford are bringing affordable and appealing electric options to the table, which threatens to erode General Motors' market share. On top of this, domestic competitors hailing from China are advancing rapidly in the electric vehicle sector, adding another layer of challenge for GM sales both at home and abroad. Now add in the reliability issues, then you will have the perfect cocktail for disaster. But what do you think? Let's know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.